We're only in September and already 2023 has been an unbelievable year for games. Street Fighter 6, Dave the Diver, Hi-Fi Rush, Wheel of Katamari, Metroid Prime Remastered, Videoverse, Sea of Stars, Pikmin 4, Starfield, Baldur's Goddamn Gate 3, Pizza Tower, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Resident Evil 4 Remake. They remade my favourite game of all time, and it was good. It was good. And somehow, there's still more to come. Mortal Kombat 1, Pinocchio Bloodborne, Cyberpunk, but it's good this time. Assassin's Creed 13, it's old again. Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Cities Skylines 2, Cocoon, Metal Gear Solid, all of them again, but like for quite a lot of money, but I'll still buy them. Thirsty Suitors, Alan Wake 2. They made another one. Spider-Man 2. A sequel to WarioWare Smooth Moves. That was the Wii one that your mum liked. Super Mario RPG. A remake made exclusively for all the people who say they like Super Mario RPG but have never actually played it. That's me. Am I forgetting anything? I feel like I'm forgetting one thing. Nope, I'm not. It feels like every single week a must-play game comes out. Like, I'm balancing 8 huge, incredible games at the same time right now. 8. That's too many. This entire video is a cry for help. Help me. How am I meant to focus on Baldur's Gate 3, a 100-hour plus RPG that is maybe one of the best games I've ever played, when I'm only 45 hours into Tears of the Kingdom, which is also maybe one of the best games I've ever played? How can I then try and squeeze in On Guard and Sea of Stars and El Paso Elsewhere around those games when I know for a fact that all I'm going to keep doing for the next month is playing Starfield, a 6 out of 10 game I cannot stop playing. Probably the best 6 out of 10 game I've played since Assassin's Creed Origins. Or God of War Ragnarok. Is that too spicy a take? So 2023 has clearly been a phenomenal year for games so far, but why is that? Is it simply because of 1 or 2 AAA games that have dominated the conversation, or is there other factors at play that are making this year feel as memorable as a 2017 or a 2007? I've been thinking about this a lot in the shower or while in bed because it's very, very hot in the UK at the moment and I have not been sleeping well. I've been lying there in a puddle of my own sweat thinking about this question. So most of these thoughts were formed while I was covered in water of my own making. Think about that for the rest of the video, you deviants. Deeming a year as being particularly notable in terms of quality game releases is a bit of a nebulous process. Pointless, maybe, some might say. Please like and subscribe. 20 years ago, when fewer games were released, a year could be deemed notable purely based on 1 or 2 releases that moved the industry and the medium forward in certain ways. In the modern era, when 1,000 games are released on Steam every second, it can be a little harder to understand the shape of a year as it's happening. You could feasibly play the majority of the biggest releases of 2004 as it was happening, and be able to speak confidently about the themes and the innovations that had occurred during the course of 2004 by the time December rolled around. You'd even have time to seek out smaller, quirkier titles like, Katamari Damacy on the PlayStation 2, and have your life irreversibly changed for the better in the process. Trying to do this in 2023 would be a fucking nightmare. You could not leave your house, and even if you didn't, there's still a chance you would miss out on a wealth of titles because you were too busy walking across a barren moon in Starfield instead of playing Halls of Torment, which is arguably a better game. So with all this in mind, why do I think 2023 is a great year for games? Vibes, I guess? Okay, let's try and be a little bit more scientific about this. A year does not exist in a vacuum. In order to fully understand the importance of a year and the games released within it, you have to understand the wider context of what came before. So let's do that. I think it's fair to say that in 2023, we were clearly coming out of a bit of a AAA dry spell. This was partially motivated by the recent release of next-gen systems in 2020, the PlayStation 5, and the Xbox Series X and S. I hate those names so much. Now, the first year to 18 months for new hardware is always a little bit slow going. This is because publishers and hardware manufacturers understand that the majority of their customer base still own the previous generation hardware, not this new, fancy, expensive one that scalpers are hiding in garages. Therefore, the common practice these days is to release a game cross-gen, so it works on both modern systems and the previous gen systems to sort of capitalize on both markets. And then when more people buy the new fancy hardware, then you start to make games exclusively for that hardware. This means that although you might get a handful of games that are made exclusively for your new shiny box, there won't be as many until normally 18 months, 2 years in to the console's life cycle. That period of time has lasted longer this generation for a reason we'll get into later. Outside of Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart and Returnal, the PlayStation 5 has not had a huge amount of exclusive titles. That is set to change with the release of Spider-Man 2 later this year, but that is 3 years since the hardware launched, and it's only really starting to kick off this year. Meanwhile, the less said about the Series X and the Series S, the better. Because even though they have had some exclusives... Moving on. Of course, the biggest reason for this dry spell is because, you might have heard of this, we had like a little bit of a pandemic. Did you hear about this? COVID completely changed the way developers worked. It caused massive delays and other issues that fundamentally affected the industry for 2 whole years. This didn't really affect 2020's release schedule. We still had huge games like Final Fantasy VII Remake, Animal Crossing New Horizons, The Last of Us Part 2, Persona 5 Royal, Ghost of Tsushima, there's probably something else I'm forgetting. Doom Eternal. Most of these games were already close enough to the finish line to launch with minimal issues, but 2021 and 2022 were not so lucky. The 2 main years that I worked in games media. I'm such a lucky boy. Outside of a handful of titles largely geared towards sickos like me, 2021 was a surprisingly fallow year. 2022 was no different, and I think the fact that Elden Ring, this super hard entry in the Souls series, became the biggest game of the year was as much a reflection on the absence of big AAA games at that period in time, as much as it was a testament to the changing tastes of a mass market audience. People wanted something big and shiny to play, and Elden Ring was that game. I'm so sorry, Horizon Forbidden West. So when you come out of a year where a third re-release of The Last of Us was the biggest exclusive on PlayStation 5, and the Xbox had As Dusk Falls, which I do like. I wish it all the best. 2023 potentially just feels like a banner year by virtue of there being more AAA games to play. Obviously, indie games just do not count in anything I'm saying. The backs of indie developers must be absolutely wrecked because they've been carrying this industry for the last 3 years, more so than they usually do. Death's Door basically saved 2021. I do think there's more to it than simply there's more to play this year, though. For starters, even though AAA is playing it safe as they always do, there has been a bigger emphasis this year on single-player focused experiences in lesser explored genres. We've had a bunch of AAA survival horror games this year. Resident Evil 4, System Shock, Dead Space, we've got Alan Wake 2 and Silent Hill 2 coming up. Yeah, most of those are remakes or sequels, but the fact that AAA is even making these games is bonkers. And then we even have some more out there concepts published by AAA that are huge success stories. Hi-Fi Rush is a AAA rhythm action game, but it's published by Microsoft in 2023, and it's popular and successful. That's amazing. And then we have The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. On the surface, this is little more than a trad sequel to Breath of the Wild that reuses most of its assets and locations, but then Nintendo were like, oh, by the way, we just put Gary's mod in there. So, enjoy. That's a game you can buy, and it's the best game of the year. RPGs have made a comeback in a huge way this year as well, in all of their subgenres. Western RPGs, CRPGs, JRPGs, ARPGs. This has been an incredible year if you like role-playing games in all their flavors. The biggest and arguably best game of the year is a CRPG. That's the kind of game your dad thinks about when you mention RPGs. Just to really highlight how wild it is that Baldur's Gate 3 has found mainstream success. Then of course there are the indies, which have been as good in 2023 as they are every year, but I do think that indies this year have been particularly innovative and exciting. Videoverse, Dave the Diver, Against the Storm, Slayers X. Even by indie standards, the variation on offer this year has been exceptional. And then there were just like games launching out of nowhere all the time. Chants of Sennaar? Where did that come from? So we have a healthy mix of single-player AAA games that are playing things safe in a comforting way, innovative genre-defining experiences that have seen success beyond their target audiences, more indie darlings than I can count, never mind play, end-of-a-generation masterpieces, and like everything in between those things. It's not that 2023 has anything specific that makes it stand out. It's just that it's exceeded any expectations you may have had about the year when it started. And also Redfall came out. Of course, the compulsion at this stage is to compare 2023 to years that came before it to truly gauge how important it's going to be in the history of the medium, and I'm going to do that now because I've got nowhere else to be. Personally, I think 2007 is one of the best years in gaming history, but I was also 15 that year, so make of that what you will. The Orange Box bundled 5 genre-defining masterpieces into one low-price package and basically legitimized Steam as a digital storefront at the same time. BioShock ushered in a new generation of narrative-driven AAA shooters. Call of Duty 4 redefined multiplayer games for the next decade. Uncharted Drake's Fortune made owning a PlayStation 3 marginally less embarrassing, a Herculean task. And also, yeah, without it, we wouldn't have the Naughty Dog we have today, but that's not as important as the first point. Super Mario Galaxy is one of those rare, perfect games that reinvented an iconic video game character for an entirely new generation of hardware with a unique control scheme. And Peggle was one of the earliest indie breakout hits of the modern era. That is a pretty strong year. Does 2023 compare to 2007? No, it doesn't. 2007 was a year of creative and technical innovation that could only have happened at that exact point in time. HD consoles were still finding their feet. Online gaming was a novel concept to most people. And the PS3 was the same price as a human kidney. We just don't live in the same world as 2007 anymore. Okay, so what about a quote-unquote bad year? I say that term very loosely. Let's pick 2014. The PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One were off to the races. A very specific race where you push your car from behind while wearing ice skates in the sand. Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and Dragon Age Inquisition were the biggest games of the year. So, you know, followed closely by Assassin's Creed Unity, Destiny, Alien Isolation, and Dark Souls 2, which everyone kind of had mixed feelings about at the time. Super Smash Bros. Released for the Wii U and nobody gave a shit. And Titanfall, a 9 out of 10 game, was exclusive to a 5 out of 10 console. Basically, Shovel Knight saved 2014. So in comparison, 2023 is definitely more on the side of 2007. Not as innovative, not as industry defining, but you know, better than the Watch Dogs year. Of course, all of this is so subjective. I mean, the best year in your mind is going to be the year when you were probably a teenager and you had all of this free time to fully invest and experience and fall in love with the games that were released in that year. More so than now when you're a sad tax-paying adult. As long as a game comes out that people connect with on an emotional level, there are arguably no bad years. And also, you could make a very compelling argument for 2011 being the most important year in video games just because Minecraft came out, and I would believe you. There's points to be made there. This is just a silly little video celebrating the games that have come out this year. Please like and subscribe. Every year is good, except 2021. And of course, 2023 has its fair share of problems. Xbox is really struggling to find an identity that isn't just Game Pass, and its 2 tentpole releases, Redfall and Starfield, have kind of missed the mark of what most players expect from a first-party AAA release. Like I say, Starfield is the best 6 out of 10 game I've played in years, and I mean that both as a negative and a compliment. Oh, and take it from someone who spent the majority of this year working as a journalist for a PC games website. PC ports this year have been pretty bad. I reviewed both Wild Hearts and Dead Space, and those games did not run well on PC. It's not a great time to be playing AAA games on PC. Some of them. Resident Evil 4 works well. Also, E3 died. RIP, I guess, which now means that Jeff Keighley is the sole representative of marketing events in general, and I think that's bad. I just think that's bad, actually. Also, this one is like as much a positive as it is a negative, but the Switch is really showing its age now, which on the one hand is like really good because we get Tears of the Kingdom, a game that can only exist when a development team is so comfortable with the hardware that they're developing for that they can squeeze out every last drop from it to make Gary's mod for the new generation. But also, like, it would be nice if that game ran a little better and had, you know, slightly higher resolution so it would look even nicer on my OLED screen. So many people are going to be mad at me for saying that, but like, come on. Please forgive me. Don't dox my dad. I just don't think much can happen over the next 3 months that could change my mind on how I feel about 2023. I just think this has been one of the best years for games ever. And if you don't think that, I don't think you're looking hard enough. Yes, okay, the industry is still flooded with live service games and AAA games are still stuffed with predatory microtransactions. There are a lot of sequels and remakes which are just not as interesting as brand new IP, and we just don't see that as much as we used to. But I can guarantee there has been a game released this year that you haven't even heard of that might end up being one of your favourite games of all time. This year has been so rich with innovation and creativity. There is something out there for you. Just read some websites, watch some videos, buy Brotato. It might be Brotato. That game's $3.99. It might be Halls of Torment. I guess I'm just really into my Vampire Survivors likes at the moment, but keep an open mind, keep searching. Yes, Call of Duty this year looks quite boring. Maybe you're not into survival horrors, maybe Starfield is leaving you cold. I get it. But honestly, the indies this year have been delicious. Basically, every year is good as long as cool games are being released. Even, I've been taking the piss out of it, but even 2021, because Resident Evil 4 VR came out this year, so it's secretly one of the best. Hello, thank you for watching. This is a slightly different video. I've tried to be on camera the whole time, but it's scripted, so I've been trying to read the script and do it from memory. It's hard. I've never really done anything like this before. I hope you enjoyed this. Please do let me know in the comments below if you thought it was good. Please subscribe. Lots more videos coming. Like I said, I'm back. Hello. If you are someone who's joined the channel because of Indiscovery and you missed that podcast, watch this space where we're in the studio cooking. We'll have stuff to talk about soon. But yeah, thanks. What's your favorite game from 2023? Let me know, please. And I probably won't have time to play it because, good lord, games are long. Good though. They're very good.